Now, I had a chat with Nkem Ilo, the Chief Executive Officer of the Public and Private Development Center. We looked at the issue of procurement in the country and how it has affected the proper implementation of yearly budgets.
First of all, you can't carry out procurement, any reasonable involvement in procurement, if you don't have access to information. And that was how we got involved in the Freedom of Information Act, all the work towards the Freedom of Information Act. So you find that you request, the Public Procurement Act allows you to have access to information, to take the documents, to examine documents after the bid evaluation and what has been made. But there were no concrete laws around the time for provision of information. There were no concrete around sanctions if your request was denied, and we got involved in the Freedom of Information Act, and the Freedom of Information Act was passed in 2011, and that expanded the scope of our work. And with that, we began to look through the documents and look through the procurement. And one of the first things it showed us was that you could have a procurement process completed on paper, but the actual contract that is being carried out on ground could be at variance. And an example of that is, for example, the use of substandard materials in carrying out projects. The fact that the contract has been abandoned because the cash-backed part of it has not been met, or a contractor locks up a building because it says the federal government hasn't paid him completely. So those were some of the things we started getting into with the Public Procurement Act and the Freedom of Information Act. And of course, Freedom of Information Act, there was that initial resistance. But lately, we also realized that the Freedom of Information Act can only give you so much, give you all these documents. But across the different MDAs, there were no standards for keeping information, for record purposes, for collecting information, arranging the information, even disseminating the information. And without that standard, you could look through the budget, for example, and see procurement for a particular thing. Then you go to the particular MDA and see a different title. Then you go to the ground, the file name has changed. So there was no unique number or identifier or file name covering a particular process from the budget down to the contract implementation. And that was why as soon as the Open Contracting Data Standards was released, and we got on board, it started building with the data standards and seeing how its applicability for Nigeria, and built Budeshi. Budeshi is Hausa, and it means open it. I never pronounce it correctly. So we built Budeshi, and Budeshi helps to structure that data. And we have used Budeshi to successfully advocate for the inclusion of the Open Contracting Data Standards in the Nigerian National Action Plan for the Open Government Partnership, and also to the federal government and the Ministry of Justice, and Nigeria has taken it as a policy.
What has been your findings as regards the way we go about the procurement process in the budget?
Okay, let me start by saying that the budgeting process and the procurement process are two distinct things. However, the budget is just an estimate. Yes. And working with the budget would not exactly present the true picture of economic development or even implementation, and that's where the public procurement comes in. And that's why I think it's been quoted several times. There was a former Attorney General had said that 99% of corruption or diversions of money has come from the public procurement process. Now, when you look at the budget and you look at the procurement processes, one of the first things, a major challenge would be late passage of the budget. And when you're looking at late passage of the budget, you have, I'm not going to go into the hula baloo that goes into the budget. I'm going to talk about its implications for the public procurement process. So looking at the public procurement process, you have the Public Procurement Act. And under the Public Procurement Act, the Act says that all contracts, all procurement processes should be open by default, what it calls open competitive bidding. This is irrespective of other restricted methods. But going by open competitive bidding, the Act specifically provides that if you are issuing a tender, an invitation to tender, that's what we call that public notice that you see in the newspapers. It says a minimum of 6 weeks. A minimum of 6 weeks. That is already a month and a half. The procurement process is lengthy. By the time you've done a minimum of 6 weeks, you also have the evaluation period, when the bids are examined, they are evaluated before it's eventually awarded. Sometimes this procurement process could take 3 months, 4 months, depends on the bulk the MDA is carrying out. And when you look at the late passage of a budget, and the budget is passed maybe 6 months, the way we had a budget being passed in June, you're already reducing the time in which an MDA can carry out its procurement process, can get quality bids, then also initiate what you call it, award of contract. Then you start doing the whole funds and financial releases. That's already a distraction from the process. That already takes time from the process. Then another situation you could look at is the fact that it causes what you call volatility or panic in the private sector business. The private sector, we all look towards the budgets. That helps the private sector plan its own business. When you have budget issues that take very long to resolve and you don't have a working budget for a country, the private sector is not in the best place position to plan its own business.
While you were talking, you mentioned the issue of the length of time it takes to pass the budget. What do you say to even some of the issues we have where it appears we're working with 2 or 3 budgets at the same time? We're trying to pass the 2017, but we're still, some ministries are still working with the 2016.
And 2017 is on. Those are confusing budgets. Even when you're monitoring a process and you go to a federal government agency and say, okay, I want to see your this, and why is this not completed? You hear the conversation of, oh, we're still implementing 2016, or we're still implementing 2017, and 2018 is being passed, and you're wondering, when do you start implementing 2018? And that also affects the contractors, because you go to a particular school and you find the school is locked and nothing has been done. They haven't roofed or they haven't done this. And the moment you reach the contractor, he tells you off the record that he hasn't been paid because maybe the contract was carried forward from this point to this point, or this procurement process is going, this one is also going, but no funds have been released to complete his procurement, his contract.
From the length of time you have spent, your agency has spent in this sector, if you were to prefer ways of ensuring that we work with the Procurement Act to ensure that the procurement process works for Nigerians, what would?
I would say 3 things. We need to start implementing a policy around e-procurement. We should go beyond paper and become more. Technology is innovating. Technology is making things easier. Technology is closing the loop and helping to put stop measures where you see opportunities for inefficient use of resources. We need to go and deploy a policy on e-procurement. I'm going to deploy it soon. We need to go into open contracting as a whole, not just the data standards. All contracting processes should become by default open. And let me give an example, including security contracts. We need to go by default. Everything should be open. People should be able to log into their laptops and see contracts that are being carried out by the Ministry of Water Resources. They're being carried out by Ministry of Education. They're able to follow the process. Oh, they are at bidding stage, they are tender. Oh, this was the contractor that was awarded. This is how much he was awarded for. This was what was released to him. Then we need to do more around citizen sensitization. Use our radio platforms, our television platforms, even our theater platforms. Nigeria has a theater troupe. We have this the different arts groups going. Use all those platforms to reach people in the language they understand, in the way they understand, and bring everybody up to the same level. Government has a huge role to play in bringing innovative technology, e-procurement platforms, open contracting platforms, and deploying them to the fullest capacity. This government role is also involved.
If you were to just summarize right now, Nigeria before Procurement Act, after the Procurement Act, and so far, how would you say we've done?
We've done a lot. We really have come far. Compared to Nigeria before the Public Procurement Act and Nigeria now, we've done remarkably well. We've had successive governments that have been involved in innovations around transparency. So we have the Freedom of Information Act, which came under a government. We have the Public Procurement Act, which came under another government. We have the Open Contracting Development and Data Standards and Open Contracting, which came under this current government. So we've done well, but we can't sit down and pat ourselves on the back. We haven't gotten to the standards where we can say we have done enough. We have done enough. Nigeria has done well compared to other African countries within this continent, but I think there's a lot more we can do.